What is good with you, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're going to be talking about some players that I'm going to be picking up on my waiver wires as we head into week 10 of the fantasy football season. As always, if this is your first time to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoy the content at the end of this video. But without wasting any more time, let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about these waiver wire pickups. All right, so before we get into my top 10 guys, I want to give you a list of double check players that you should be looking at. They're owned in over 50% or roughly 50% of leagues, so they may not be available in your leagues. But the list of guys is going to be Rome Odunze, Jonathan Brooks, Rico Dowdle, Kirk Cousins, Jerry Jeudy, Juwan Jennings, Matthew Stafford, Zach Charbonnet, Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Tyler Algier, Jalen McMillan, and Justin Herbert. Like I said, most of these guys, they may be already rostered in your leagues. They are about 50% or more, but I think these are names that people are going to be floating around on the internet this week. So if they're available, you can go pick those guys up as well. But let's hop into my first guy. And I'm not going to lie, this week's waiver wire run is not the greatest week for waivers at all by any means. And there's a couple guys that we've already talked about, but they're still available in less than 50% of leagues. The first one's going to be Bo Nix. He is rostered in about 44% of leagues. But look, this guy has been on a tear over the last month. He has been a quarterback one really over the last 4 weeks. He has a ton of rushing upside. He's a guy that I think needs to be rostered in every type of league format. The schedule for them is a little bit tough coming up. I think they got Kansas City on the schedule here in the next couple weeks. Maybe it's just next week, but they do have a tougher schedule. Bo Nix, he does enough with his legs. He's going to rush the football. He's going to get some passing touchdowns. Hell, he even looked like wide receiver one this week. He caught a receiving touchdown. He just does enough. Quite frankly, it's really not anything that is a good looking quarterback play. It doesn't look like he is really out there scoring a lot of points, but he ends up having a lot of points every week, or at least enough points to keep giving you QB 1 week. So with that being said, even if you're just picking him up to put him as your quarterback 2 on your bench, in case you got a bye week here in the next couple weeks, we do have some buys this week. The Cleveland Browns, Green Bay Packers, Las Vegas Raiders, Seattle Seahawks, a couple of those guys, maybe Geno Smith, you have him, you need a bye. I think Bo Nix is a perfect fill-in in his placement. So let's go to the next guy. I do think Jaylen Warren is a guy that we've talked about before as well. He's at 44% rostership, and the rostership's going to continue going down the more and more we talk about these guys, so they might be more widely available. But Jaylen Warren, he's the clear handcuff to Najee Harris. This is an offense that wants to run the football. They're trying to establish the run. This is the time of the year where we should be grabbing those guaranteed handcuffs that we know are going to get a heavy workload if the starter goes down. I think that's Jaylen Warren to Najee Harris. So if you have room on your bench, make sure to pick up Jaylen Warren. Make sure to put him there. And he does look good. He's kind of struggled early in the year because of a hamstring injury. But just looking at last week, I mean, he had 9 carries for 46 yards, averaging 5.1 a carry. I think this is a guy who's going to have some value if Najee Harris goes down, and he might even have some standalone value if his workload continues to go up. Now let's go to the tight end position. I want to talk about Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's rostered in about 31% of leagues right now. He's a guy who, with Chris Olave struggling with some concussions, with Rashid Shaheed out in this offense, and then we even had Kendre Miller, who was missing some time. Taysom Hill's going to find himself into a role somehow, whether it's going to be in the run game, whether it's going to be in the receiving game, whatever it may be, Taysom Hill's going to have some value in this New Orleans Saints offense. Now, that being said, you get to put him at the tight end position. So we talked about those buys. If you have David Njoku, if you have a guy like Tucker Kraft, maybe a guy like Brock Bowers, and you need a plug and play, there's really no tight end that's going to get the type of unique usage that Taysom Hill is getting in this offense. That type of usage gives him such a high floor when you plug him into the lineup. So make sure if you need a streaming tight end, somebody that you can pick up and play, Taysom Hill, he has a very high floor. Now let's go to another guy that has a lot of buzz right now, Quentin Johnston of the Los Angeles Chargers. He's rostered in about 28% of leagues. This week, he went 4 for 5 for 118 yards and a receiving touchdown. The Los Angeles Chargers are starting to throw the football a little bit more each and every week. It seems like they're starting to let Justin Herbert start to air that ball out. And Quentin Johnston, he seems to be the downfield target in this offense. You got Ladd McConkey, obviously, who we've liked, we've been a fan of on this channel. He plays that short intermediate type of role. QJ is playing downfield, and he looks like he is kind of a red zone threat in this offense as well. I think if you're looking for a sneaky wide receiver play that you can pick up and play in the upcoming week, Quentin Johnston, he's a guy that you can probably pick up. You can probably go add him to your team, and I think he has instant playability here in this Chargers offense. Now let's go back to the quarterback position. Another quarterback who's played well, Russell Wilson, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last time he was on the football field, obviously last week he was on bye, He played the New York Giants. He went 278, a passing touchdown, and that was really a mediocre day for him. He finished with 13.8 PPR points. The week before that, he had like 24 points. This is a guy who I think is going to be the starter for the Steelers the remainder of the season. You're going to be able to plug him in. It seems like the offense is going to get better and better as the year goes on. George Pickens looks like he's playing better. It looks like Pat Freiermuth is playing better. Everybody entirely is benefiting from this Russell Wilson addition at the quarterback position. I think he's a guy who maybe he doesn't have the rushing upside that Justin Fields had, but he definitely has a much higher passing ceiling. And if you're looking for a guy to plug in and play, Russell Wilson, rostered in 24% of leagues, I think he's a guy you can pick up and put on your team. Now let's go to the running back position. I want to talk about a potential stash. We talked about him before. We've talked about him for many weeks, so I'm not going to go too long. Blake Corum of the Los Angeles Rams. It's very obvious he is the handcuff. Right now, Kyren Williams, he is getting a massive workload, and it's obvious that he deserves that massive workload. Blake Corum really not being involved outside of any type of, hey, catch your breath, Kyren Williams type of plays. But that being said, Corum, he looks like he would be the guy, or he would be my bet as to be the guy if Kyren Williams goes down. And we've seen that Kyren Williams role, that Sean McVay running back role, that is a massive bell cow role. So if Blake Corum is available on your rosters, which he is going to be available in over 75% of leagues, you see that rostership at 24%. He's a guy that I'm picking up and stashing if I can afford to hold him. You're not going to be able to play him outside of a Kyren Williams injury, but if the Williams injury happens, Blake Corum, potential league winner on our hands. Now let's go to another quarterback where I just do not understand the rostership percentage. Currently rostered in 22% of leagues. Drake Maye. Drake Maye should be rostered in every single type of league. I'm really not kidding when I say that. 29 for 41 in his last game, 206 yards. Look at the rushing yards. 8 carries for 95 yards. This is a true dual threat type of quarterback, and he's going to be in an offense that is playing from behind in a majority of games. We know that Patriots offense isn't great. He's going to run the football. He's going to throw the football. He has a big arm. He's talented. Drake Maye, every time that he has started for the New England Patriots, he has been one of the top quarterback plays at the position each and every week. I think Drake Maye needs to be rostered in every league, and if he is available amongst all of the quarterbacks that we talked about today, he's my number one quarterback that you need to go pick up. Drake Maye must roster in any type of league right now. Now going back to a stash, a handcuff, Roschon Johnson. We know that the Chicago Bears, they want to ride with DeAndre Swift right now. DeAndre Swift has been good, but Roschon Johnson, he has been spelling him. Currently rostered right now in about 21% of leagues. Again, this is a guy who, unless there is an injury to DeAndre Swift, he's not going to have a lot of value. But we have seen Roschon Johnson be used in this offense, and we know that DeAndre Swift necessarily doesn't have the cleanest resume when it comes to health either. So Roschon Johnson, he's probably available in your league. He's a guy that I'm picking up, stashing as a handcuff. If I have DeAndre Swift, I definitely want him on my roster just in case as insurance. Even if I don't have DeAndre Swift, I'm picking him up and using him as leverage down the road, potentially in my playoffs if something does happen to DeAndre Swift. Now let's go to the tight end position again. Mike Gesicki is the guy that I want to talk about. Mike Gesicki, 5 for 6 for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in this last week with T. Higgins out of the lineup. Now, one thing that's worth noting, rostered in about 21% of leagues, but with T. Higgins off of the football field, Mike Gesicki has been operating as a slot wide receiver, and he has been very good every time that T. Higgins is out of the lineup. Now, we are here at the trade deadline. Maybe T. Higgins gets dealt, maybe he doesn't. Doesn't really matter to me. Mike Gesicki should be picked up and rostered in leagues right now because we don't even know if T. Higgins is going to be available next week. I just think I'm looking at it as this. You have David Njoku, you have Tucker Kraft, you have Brock Bowers on bye this week. Mike Gesicki with T. Higgins out of the lineup potentially this week. He is a smash tight end start, a perfect stream candidate. So I would be picking up Mike Gesicki if he is available and you need tight end. So let's go to the second to last guy. This is a guy who got a little bit of buzz at the end of last week after the Deontay Johnson trade, but Jalen Coker of the Carolina Panthers, he got a lot of buzz on the internet. I kind of said on our Friday Q&A that we should pump the brakes and not really force Jalen Coker into our starting lineups if we didn't have to. Now that obviously probably was the better play, I would say right now, just seeing that he went 2 for 3 for 36 yards, obviously not great, but he is rostered in 17% of leagues and still worth a pickup in my opinion. Right now we have seen the Carolina Panthers, they traded Jonathan Mingo today to the Dallas Cowboys. Does that really matter too much? Probably not. Maybe all that means is a little bit more targets going to Jalen Coker's way, but it seems like the Carolina Panthers are very content with the wide receiver room that they have right now in Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker. So Jalen Coker, he's a guy I'm picking up. We know that this Carolina Panthers offense is going to be playing from behind a lot of the time because the defense isn't great. So Coker, pick him up, dash him. You don't need to force him into your lineup. Just because we like a guy doesn't mean we have to force him into the starting lineup, but definitely pick up Jalen Coker and plug him into the end of your bench. And then I'm going to give you one bonus. We always go 10. I'm going 11 this week. We're going to talk about Khalil Herbert. I loaded this up last night before the trade happened because I felt like Khalil Herbert was a trade deadline candidate. He did get traded. So Khalil Herbert, rostered right now in 9% of leagues, going to be widely available. He is now a Cincinnati Bengal. So with that being said, we know that Zach Moss, he is going to be out indefinitely. They've said potentially the remainder of the season, if not more. So Khalil Herbert, he's going to plug in into that Zach Moss role immediately behind Chase Brown. I still like Chase Brown. The Cincinnati Bengals, they've talked about how they don't want to give him a massive workload. They want another guy to spell him. Khalil Herbert would be awesome in that role. I think he's a guy where obviously we've talked about potential stash of handcuffs. Herbert would be Chase Brown's handcuff. He also might have some standalone value in this offense as well. I think he's a very talented player. The Bears, they just had made him a healthy scratch. They didn't have enough room on the roster for him. I think he's going to be a very solid pickup. So if you have the room to pick him up, you have the room to put him on your bench, Khalil Herbert is definitely a guy that I'm looking at this week. And I'm trying to add him to the back of my roster because he is going to plug into that Zach Moss role and maybe, just maybe, even better at the Zach Moss role than Zach Moss has been this year. So that is my top 10 pickups, some double check players, a bonus player, all of that stuff for you guys today. If you did enjoy the video, go ahead and hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and go join our Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description for you to join. That's where you can go in and ask me any type of questions that you may have, fantasy football related, whatever you got, dynasty, redraft, anything, doesn't matter. That's the best place to get a hold of me. And there's an awesome community of 250 plus people in there for you 24/7, 365. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, but I'll see you on the next one. Until then, peace out.